when we spoke to Nigel Farage about this earlier this week, he said that he was open to listen to what Rupert Lowe had to say. Do you think this is the beginning of a thawing between the two men?
Not really. I mean, you called it an olive branch. I would say it's an olive branch who's been dipped in hemlock. The way in which Rupert, and you showed that film, but you missed out the Werther's originals, tinkly piano in the background. It came with so many conditions as to be impossible. That was the problem. I think this was Rupert making himself relevant rather than a genuine and honest.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Response. And I think the proof of that, sadly, came when the next day Farage was questioned about it. He said, well, I've been in touch and I've had no response. And Rupert's response was to clip very tightly a text correspondence and say, look, he didn't. Well, busy people, I'll call you in the afternoon, normally expect a response, yes, or maybe 4:30, I'm busy until then, or something, nothing. I think I'm very dubious as whether this was meant as a genuine, sort of open-handed reaction, or whether it was about getting Rupert into the conversation. What I find is very interesting is both for Mr. Lowe, for Mr. Polanski, for Ms. Badenoch, Mr. Davey, or Sir Ed, to guarantee media coverage, what they do is talk about Farage. Burnham can get media coverage on his own, but everybody else seems to lean on Farage in order to get coverage.
But Gawain, there is no denying. I mean, yes, perhaps Rupert Lowe didn't go about it the best way. Perhaps his approach to Farage wasn't as genuine as it might have been. But there is no denying that Restore is taking chunks out of Reform. Reform is admitting it. Even if Restore can't win anywhere but Great Yarmouth, they can still take chunks out of Reform. Surely there is some way for these two men to bury the hatchet and find a way to work together. I know that's what a lot of our viewers would like to see.
Of course, and many people who are voting for Restore, and support Restore are people who are very decent, honourable people. I feel that they are maybe a little bit politically naive. They wish to see the perfect rather than the good, and in politics, it's all about the art of the possible. And they wish to see things happen yesterday, when that's just not how it works. And they perceive betrayal at every step. However, they're good people. They want the best for this country, as do I, as does Nigel, as to the people in Reform. And yes, there is absolutely the possibility of some coming together there. But I think the best way of seeing it is seeing where, say, former Reform councillors that are affected to Restore, working with Reform groups at local government, rather than talking in video clips, rather than privately. It's interesting. Mr. Lowe put out a video. Nigel did a private text message. If you want to have a serious discussion, you do it in private, I think. But if you want to see if Restore and Reform can work together, well, how about the councillors in Kent who defected, working with and working effectively with the Reform leadership in Kent? How about the councillors in Norfolk doing the same, and in other councils, Northamptonshire and elsewhere where this happens? I think the best way of seeing if we can work together is actually working together where we can.
Uncomfortable truth is that a Frankenstein coalition of the Lib Dems, the Greens and Labor would be just about the end for this country, at least in the way that we know it. And at the moment, there is a very real possibility of that happening because they are, in many ways, more strategic than the right. Any attempts to try and bring together the disparate factions on the right of politics must surely be a good thing.
Well, look, I completely defend uniting the right, and I want to see the right working together, because the alternative is what? More years under a Labour government. But this deal cannot be negotiated over social media. Rupert Lowe has got Nigel's number. He should pick up the phone and give him a ring. This is inappropriate to be discussed over social media in the first place. Secondly, I don't think reform should have to accept those 5 conditions as the end all, because Restore Britain needs Reform UK. Reform UK does not need Restore Britain.
Well, some people would argue that they do need Restore Britain. At the moment, their polling numbers vary dramatically, but they outpolled the Conservatives, for example. Not outpolled, they received more votes than the Conservatives in the Manchester mayoralty election. Let's say they do pick up 5 to 10% of the vote, 5% of the vote perhaps in the next general election. That would really hurt Reform's chances of getting a majority government.
It would, but the thing is that Restore Britain doesn't have the same scale and infrastructure that Reform UK have in order to have that sort of attempt up and down the country, in my opinion, unfortunately. And at the moment, we do only see these 2 parties really in play at war in some councils, in local government. We need to really sort of focus here on local government at the moment, because where Reform will be judged in the next general election will be on their performance in councils and local government. And Restore Britain councillors in quite a few councils, such as Kent or Warwickshire, have gone out of their way to attack Reform administrations and have hindered them.
Look, there's been attacks on both sides from Reform supporters and from Restore supporters. In many ways, they have both actually shown a greater disdain for each other than they've shown for the Greens and Labor, which I've found incredibly dispiriting. But the other thing which I think we need to point out, of course, is there some politics with putting this out in the public domain in the way that Rupert Lowe has? Of course there is. They're politicians after all. But at the same time, on at least 4 of these, I would have thought you could actually get to agreement. Now, I don't think you'd get the cabinet veto which they are asking for. And I think this whole approach of saying, well, every single Conservative under that previous government should not be included in any future governments. I think you can basically separate out ones who are the good eggs from the bad eggs. But on the vast majority of what he said, you should be able to find some common ground, shouldn't you?
I do definitely agree with that. Reform and Restore Britain have a lot in common with their policies, but Restore Britain ran in Makerfield with the sole purpose of harming Nigel Farage, basically. So we need to really address that. And I think that's the only issue that they themselves can work out. In terms of Rupert putting this offer on social media publicly as well, he's obviously done it as a publicity stunt, fine, whatever. And it's getting everyone talking. It's getting us talking, it's getting councillors talking, it's getting everyone on Twitter talking. And that is what we need to focus on now, is how that will then perform coming forward. That behaviour change that I would expect to see from Restore councillors and any Restore members who are, high up in the hierarchy of Restore, you would expect that to all change going forward and for them to be a bit more friendly towards Reform. Reform are the larger vehicle and they are the way for Restore to get any sort of in with the next general election.
Time will tell. Jess, thanks for your time this morning.
Can Britain's fractured right actually unite? Or is this just another act in the psychodrama of British politics? Today, we're unpacking Rupert Lowe's extraordinary offer to Nigel Farage and asking whether this is the beginning of a genuine alliance or the beginning of the end for both of them. Welcome back to Britain Underneath, the channel that pulls back the curtain on what's really happening in this country, beyond the headlines, beyond the spin. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button now, because this is exactly the kind of story we live for. All right, let's dive in. So here's what's happened. Rupert Lowe, leader of the Restore Britain party, has gone public with an offer to Nigel Farage. The pitch is simple on the surface. Put the egos aside, forget the history, and unite what Lowe calls a hopelessly divided right wing, before Labour, now under Prime Minister Andy Burnham, walks away with the next election. But of course, nothing in British politics is ever simple, is it? Lowe didn't just extend a hand of friendship. He came with conditions, 5 of them, and some of them are going to make headlines for weeks. First up, borders. Lowe says stopping illegal immigration isn't enough anymore. He wants deportations. Across the board, no exceptions, no half measures. This is the kind of language that plays well with a certain slice of the electorate and sends everyone else reaching for the smelling salts. Make of that what you will. Second, and this is the one people are already fighting about online, Lowe is calling for what he terms demographic security. He's pointing to population projections that he claims show a shrinking share of white Britons in the coming decades, and he's tied that concern to a list of proposed bans on the burqa, on religious slaughter practices, on cousin marriage, and on what he describes as Sharia courts and public displays of Islamic prayer. Strong words, contested claims, and exactly the sort of thing that could make or break any alliance with Farage, who has always been careful about how far right he lets reform drift, at least publicly. Third, Lowe wants a referendum. Not on Europe this time, but on bringing back the death penalty. Let that sink in for a second. A full, free and fair public vote, in his words, on whether Britain should start executing people again. That is not a small ask, and it's not one Farage can dodge easily if he wants this partnership. Fourth, brace yourselves. Lowe is talking about enormous cuts to public spending. Difficult, unpopular decisions, he says. Translation: someone's budget is getting slashed, and it probably isn't going to be a popular someone. And fifth, perhaps the most personal condition of all, Lowe wants a clean break from the old guard. Former Conservative ministers, he says, do not get a seat at any future cabinet table. They had their chance, in his words, and they blew it. Now here's why this matters right now. Before we go further, if you want more breakdowns like this delivered straight to you, make sure you're subscribed to Britain Underneath, because this story is only going to get bigger. Labour has just overtaken Reform in 2 separate polls and drawn level in a third. Andy Burnham, the former Manchester mayor turned Prime Minister after taking over from Keir Starmer, has hit the ground running. Education reform, an overhaul of social care, devolution pledges, and a hefty £8.4 billion investment into Britain's nuclear deterrent. And let's not forget Makerfield. That by-election was supposed to be a nail-biter between Labour and Reform. Instead, Lowe's Restore Britain performed far stronger than expected, splitting the right-wing vote and handing Burnham a comfortable win with around 55%. It didn't change the outcome, but it proved something important. A divided right can hand Labour victories it shouldn't be winning. So is this Lowe genuinely trying to save the right from itself? Or is this a power play from a man who was kicked out of Reform just last year, looking to force his way back onto the political stage on his own terms? Farage hasn't responded publicly yet, and how he answers, or whether he answers at all, could reshape British politics heading into the next election. That's the story, and there is so much more underneath it. Take a breath, stay informed, and if this kind of honest, unfiltered look at British politics is what you're after, please subscribe to Britain Underneath. It genuinely helps this channel keep doing what it does. Stick around till the end of every video, because the details we uncover here, you won't find them anywhere else. See you in the next one.